Hey guys, this is Impact Hall of Famer Gail Kim, and you are watching the Countdown City WrestleCast.
What's up, heels and baby faces? Welcome to another episode of the Countdown City WrestleCast. I'm your host, JC, and I'm joined this week by Tommy on the phone.
Hey, what's up, guys?
And Mike.
I'm Mike, and dear God, it's still 2020.
It's like when you say that you expect the year to change all of a sudden.
Yeah. You know, I know we said at the beginning of the year that even when the year was over, you would still say that, but I don't know if you're going to keep saying that after this shit's over.
I know, like, now I feel like, should I just stop? Like, was it a curse the whole time?
I don't know,
I don't know.
You know, and hoping that the warmer turns of weather. And a sign of good things to come, Tina and I have been talking about us going to Vegas at the end of July. Vegas started to take bookings at hotels starting in the beginning of May again for a really discounted rate, too. So
that's cool.
It's starting to look on the up and up, at least for Vegas. So something to look forward to.
I hope so. That'd be cool.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Our Twitter account, of course, at @CCG_WrestleCast. You can subscribe to our channel, The Countdown City Geeks. I'll just point because I'm the only one here. Today, obviously no major events coming on, but we're going to talk a little bit of wrestling news that has come out. And there's been quite a bit of wrestling news because even with the quarantine going on, there's always shit going on. Interviews still happen, things like that. Last week, we kind of gave a quick preview of the AEW TNT Championship Tournament. And today, we're going to pick the rest of the bracket with Cody having won the first round match. And then we're going to talk about Dark Side of the Ring, Chris Benoit, which was the season 2 premiere episode of the series Dark Side of the Ring, parts 1 and 2. So before we get to that, we'll give you guys a little bit of a spoiler warning of what's going on. If you don't know the story, if you haven't seen the episodes, I encourage you to go watch them. They are available for free on YouTube from Vice's YouTube channel. It's a very good story for you, whether you know the story or not. Myself, being alive when it happened, how shocked I was, I learned a lot from this documentary, actually. So we'll kind of talk through that as well. But before we begin, I'm going to give our resident super fan of Cesaro, Mike, a chance to recap what he will probably call the greatest podcast episode of all time.
Oh, God.
And I'm talking about the New Day Feel the Powers podcast, which was a Cesaro appreciation episode. I will preface this by saying I haven't heard it yet. Been quite a busy week for work, but I am planning to listen to it very, very soon. But Mike, I'm sure when that popped up on your feed, you were listening to it probably at least 5 or 6 times. So
I wanted to go running down the street high-fiving people, and we're not allowed to do that. So.
Well, you could just make sure you wear a mask and gloves. I mean,
sure.
Yeah, so.
You could have air high-fived people.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
But
it's Cesaro. I could have held back.
Like Demolition Man, you know. So what can you tell us about the episode? Was it everything you hoped it would be? So.
I mean, yeah. In all seriousness, it was really entertaining. The New Day, and if you've listened to their podcast, they put him over all the time. They talked about no matter what group he was in, whether it was him and Tyson Kidd at the beginning or him and Cesaro with the Bar. They felt like Cesaro was a part of a lot of their growth and moments because he was always in tag teams.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I found real funny at the beginning is Xavier Woods just kind of like, this whole podcast is really just going to be me, like, not sure how you do the things you do in the ring. Like, he's like, how do you pull them off? Like, it's crazy. And so they just kind of start getting into stories about different things. You know, they talked about, I guess Cesaro, when he came in from the Indies, started when they still had FCW. So he was there for a while. Apparently he had a good match with Breeze, who was Mike Dalton at the time. That they felt kept Dalton in FCW. You know, that if not to go off on a tangent for Breeze, but if you've heard him talk or follow him online, it seems like a lot of times in his career he was real close to probably being released. They had nothing for him.
I think they detailed that on a little NFC documentary, how he was on the way out until he came up with the Tyler Breeze gimmick, and that kind of saved his career.
And then apparently part of it they talked about too was just Cesaro had a great match with him, put him over. I don't remember if they said he took a bump or like he did a spot with him that people just got super impressed by. But yeah, so he talks about that. Big E puts him over as like being able to do any kind of match. Like he can do lucha, he can do big man, he can do technical, and it was just real fun. And they just start getting into stories and talking about. Cesaro talks about some of the people he's tried to swing, and he actually said that even though he swung Kali a couple times, and one time apparently in Germany on a house show, he almost injured himself doing it. He said Big Show was one. He knows what he can't do. That's why it always looks like he can do anything.
Yeah,
because he's not going to try stuff that he knows he can't do. And he kind of mentions that
smart.
Big Show, even though Kali's a little bit taller, I guess because Big Show's a little bit thicker or something, he knew he wouldn't be able to pull it off the way to look good. So
yeah,
he always stayed away from that. But it's real fun. And you could tell like they're just all really close friends. Like I've always said about the New Day podcast, I love that they're just three friends hanging out. Those are always my favorite kind of podcasts to listen to. They talk about a story when it was Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, where New Day. I think Tyson Kidd and Cesaro were supposed to be the faces. New Days were still heels at the beginning, but the crowd was just, or maybe it was the reverse. I don't know. But basically, they just double switched on the fly in the ring because they realized that the fans, maybe the fans were booing New Day and they're supposed to be face. I think that's what it was. I think it was like in Europe, so they were kind of more behind Cesaro and Tyson Kidd. But they just like Natty was outside with them. I think Big E was on the outside of the ring, or maybe Xavier Woods was on the outside. And all six of them just like we flipping. Like it clicked. And Cesaro talked about he just loves being able to do that stuff on the fly. So
that's the best thing. Yeah,
it's really entertaining. I can go on, and talk about that, but definitely check it out if you get a chance. I mean, the podcast itself, the New Day, is always fun to listen to with those guys. But this one was definitely a great one.
Nice. Do you guys feel like this is them trying to push Cesaro themselves ever since Vince made that stupid brass ring comment about Cesaro? I think it was on the Steve Austin podcast. Do you feel like they're trying to push him so that he's not stuck in purgatory for years like Kofi was?
I probably a part of it. He actually mentions, of all things, that a lot of people were making comments to him after that podcast. But he said that the New Day was like the first guys he talked to afterwards. Just kind of about what Vince said and how they felt about things. And I think the New Days are a good example of a group that you find the right thing for them and you can push them to the moon. And if WWE really gets behind something, if they really want to, you can push anybody, especially someone as talented as him. So I was going to kind of mention, because you'd asked how I want to talk about it. There's a lot of people like not New Day related. There was Cody Rhodes putting Cesaro over on Twitter a couple days ago, just talking about he can do anything. Like he's an amazing athlete. He's great in the ring. Like I forgot what someone had mentioned, but they're like, even Cody Rhodes is putting him over. So I think it's New Day just trying to do what they can for him. And there's a lot of people, even still in the WWE locker room, that are always putting him over. So.
Well,
be nice.
We can only hope he kind of gets the Daniel Bryan WrestleMania treatment, the Kofi WrestleMania treatment. That he definitely deserves. So,
I will say one thing: just when he talks and has conversation with him, and I think part of it's probably because English isn't his first language, even though he speaks it fluently.
Yeah,
you always feel like he's thinking about the right words to say. So, talking doesn't come as natural to him as it does the New Day or your bigger, your Seth Rollins, the guys who are kind of on top right now. So I can see why a lot of people are like, oh, well, he doesn't have the mic skill. He doesn't quite have that, but he has the talent. And if WWE really cared, like I said, they could hide the weaknesses, accentuate the strengths, give him someone to talk more often. And then he would just, put on amazing shows in the ring. So
yeah.
I think if they wanted to, if they felt like it would give them something, they could easily.
Plus, he knows how many languages. Like, he could be a champion for so many countries that they go to visit,
Well, look what they do with Asuka now, She just comes out and speaks Japanese.
Yeah.
if you really want to, you can come out and probably speak French, Italian, German, Swiss, whatever. Swiss language probably is, right?
I believe so. I'm not Swiss. I don't know. Can someone in Switzerland let us know? Yeah. Cool, man. Well, I'm going to definitely give it a listen. I'm very interested in it. And I know, Mike, how many times have you listened to it so far?
Just twice.
Lie. I don't believe that at all.
In the last 2 hours.
Okay.
That I believe.
Put it on double speed to make sure he got it all. Yeah. So, all right. Well, cool, man. That's definitely something worth checking out. And yes, check out the New Day podcast. It's very entertaining. Always a blast. Yeah. And I like how they get a little free reign with it too. So
they do. They
their TV tournament was hilarious. I was listening to the follow up episode of that where they instituted the hot challenge, the chip challenge to kind of get your show through. And I'm trying to mow the lawn and I'm dying laughing too while that was going on. So.
Tommy, have you heard that one? The 2 episodes.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Okay. Do you want a spoiler?
Look,
sure.
Here, I'll give him a spoiler. All I'm going to say is they do a 64 show bracket on the greatest TV show of all time. And they're voting amongst themselves the banter.
I think you'd be pretty happy with who wins.
I think you'd be pretty happy, but the debates back and forth between them, some of the generation age gaps as well, it's entertaining.
Okay.
It's so hilarious.
I'll listen to it for sure.
So definitely, yeah. All right. We're going to jump into a little bit of wrestling news. We're going to keep it here, mostly WWE, because it seems to be where all the news is coming from. But kind of the biggest one today, we're recording this on Tuesday, April 14th. The day before, what was the original tax day? WWE has been declared a, quote, essential business in the state of Florida. Well.
That's so weird.
Well, yeah. Apparently, if you start reading some of the things that are coming out, and, not to get too much into politics.
Yeah.
But there's reasons and connections that they're an essential business.
Yeah, let's just say Linda McMahon was trending on Twitter for reasons. But, Vince tried to make that argument before, or Triple H actually did, saying that it was essential. I don't think it's that bad. There's no fans in attendance. They have doctors on site. They take all the necessary precautions. I know there's reports out there that somebody, an on-air talent and or his or her significant other, as positive for COVID-19. They haven't revealed who. There's rumors out there, but nobody knows for sure, right? So,
yeah. Well, Tina posted that one on the group chat, which more people are starting to refute. But it was interesting because it was a couple wrestlers, or it was a couple on-air talent.
Yeah, it was. Well, we'll just say it. The early rumors were already that it was Corey Graves and Carmella. But
and Bobby Lashley, right?
And Bobby Lashley, I think, as well. But and for a second, I thought, well, maybe that might make sense because Corey wasn't at WrestleMania, if I recall.
Yeah, I don't think he. Well, he was doing the introduction
backstage
show, right? Yeah,
the backstage thing. Yeah,
but he wasn't calling anything ringside, which I thought was very weird, considering.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So, excuse me. I don't know. I don't know if it's them or not. Who knows? But whoever it is, I hope the recovery goes well, speedy, no issues, and that the virus just dies right there, and doesn't spread from there. Now, obviously, with them being named an essential business for in Florida by the governor, there's actually a lot of dominoes that could drop from this. And the first one that's noteworthy is AEW, which films their stuff in Jacksonville and could potentially also be producing their own live shows in Jacksonville. It is in Florida, obviously, with WWE in Orlando. And AEW then has an argument. If you're saying that a wrestling entertainment show, a live show, obviously this is good news for WWE because they have a TV contract to fill. They need to air this stuff. Most of the wrestlers there live in that area or can get there pretty easily, and that's fine. I have no issues for it. I know there's some reporters out there trying to say it's essential, and they're sitting there grilling press and making arguments online. It's like, look, it's a job they signed up for. If this is the way it goes, I'm sure they'll work with them if they have concerns. Obviously, the first one that comes to mind is Roman Reigns, but we'll get to that. But with impacts to AEW, this pretty much clears the way for AEW to continue their live shows on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'll say, and again, politics aside, because I think you've seen some of the stories of why they were granted this.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't think they're essential business. I appreciate what they did for WrestleMania and everything leading up to it, but from the standpoint of critical things that are going on right now, I don't think it's essential. I would be totally fine if they said, you know what, for the safety of everyone, we're going to suspend live shows from now on. WWE has enough content to air until the end of the world and beyond, probably. I know you said there was the TV schedule there.
Yeah. Do you think that Fox was pressuring him? Because one of the big things, Fox wanted a live Friday show with part of this contract. Do you think Fox had been pressuring them to get a live show on Fridays one way or another?
I mean, I'm sure they had some influence into it. I mean, again, that kind of gets into the politics and the rich, but.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead,
Tom. My thing is, like, how could they legally still demand that when, like, legally you can't operate? Is my only thing.
They find their ways. Money talks,
Yeah, I guess.
Look who our president is, right? So, I mean,
I don't have money, so I don't know.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. The money that I do have does talk to me, but then it goes away when bills come out. So,
it says bye.
Yeah, bye later. So,
mine talks to me. It says, "Dude, what are you even thinking about doing? It's not going to happen. Okay, let's just go.
Yeah.
Let's just go."
On a positive side, maybe this is a turn. Everyone's wondering when this is going to hit the peak and we can start getting back to normal. Obviously, as a wrestling fan, I'm happy we're at least getting this and with some sense of normalcy that we can get some sort of live sporting entertainment, out of this. So, which is great because I'm still waiting for the Ocho to come back on ESPN. Although they are running they did the 2K challenge with NBA players and they're doing the horse challenge, which has been pretty entertaining. So as well. So,
I haven't watched that, but I heard that because they were shooting from like different. I guess their own computers or things, like the video quality wasn't great on some of that.
Yeah, you could tell, like, basically they're FaceTiming or Facebook Messenger or video calling, and one guy's hosting and they have their own backcourt, their own backyards. Paul Pierce lives in LA, and his court has a big Boston Celtics logo right in the middle of it, which he says is probably the only one in LA, but he's proud of it. So it's pretty cool,
That's awesome.
But he went against Zach LaVine, and they each have their own basketball court they have access to, and they're just having fun with it. So it is a pretty cool thing. At least there's some sort of content out there, so I can understand WWE wanting to be a part of that. Ronda Rousey. Oh boy. So she recently did an interview. I guess they were asking why she would want to go, if she would consider going back to WWE, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but basically she said, why would she want to go back? It's fake fights, and the fans don't appreciate shit. Calling it a fake business. These are all real. Sure they take bumps and everything, but it's not. I'm not going to get paid to just take fake fights. I can do a few real fights in a year or something like that. If I did that as many times as they wrestled, someone's going to die. Nia Jax, of course, was very quick to respond. Basically letting it known, and this is questionable the way she tweeted this, but she let it known that if Ronda came back, she wouldn't hesitate to somehow intentionally hurt her. Which, as a wrestler, we know is very unprofessional, regardless of whatever heat you have with somebody. Now, before we get everyone's opinion on this, I will say, during the build-up to WrestleMania 35, obviously we know Ronda really embraced heel Ronda, calling the business fake, calling out fans for this, basically calling out everyone in the locker room and the whole quote-unquote work-shoot promos that she was doing on her channel. And it really helped to build up that whole storyline with her and Becky and Charlotte, and help them get into the main event at WrestleMania. So when this stuff came back around, when Total Divas was airing, Ronda was a part of that show, Nia was a part of it. And Nia got really pissed off when these videos were coming out and did have a heart-to-heart talk with Ronda about it, and Ronda's explaining what was going on. Backstage on Total Divas, she explained she was doing this to build up hype, help the division, and build up for her match. And Nia seemed to understand. So why is Nia reacting this way now to Ronda's statements? Obviously, to me and to Tina, it's a freaking work. It's obviously a work for her to get back into WWE and build up some sort of storyline, especially with Shayna losing. I guess I'll start there. Why is Nia overreacting to this when she knows it's probably a work?
Because Nia's part of the work.
Yeah, I was going to say, why would you assume she's not working also?
Yeah, but I don't know. I feel like the comments on Twitter might be a little too far, but you never know. You know?
I think you have Nia.
Yeah.
I think it's all a work. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
honestly, I think pushing things on Twitter now is what makes everyone believe it. That's like Twitter's like the one place that's still kind of kayfabe safe, because if like, oh, they said it on Twitter, it must be real.
Yeah.
You know?
And
so I don't know. Like the second I heard the comments, I was like, that's gotta be a work.
Hands down.
She's trying to piss off every single wrestling fan. That way when she comes back, she will get booed out of the building. However, I will say this. And to play devil's advocate, when she said ungrateful fans, I was like, yeah, I can see that. That actually, I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, are we really that
right about.
Are we really that ungrateful, or was it more they wanted Becky over Ronda, and that was the issue? She had issues with being booed. You know.
But I'm not even like, when it comes to Becky over Ronda, that's one thing. But like, I'm talking about like when they like at Survivor Series when they booed her for no reason. I think it was Survivor Series. It was like, it wasn't that Becky couldn't, or like that she was taken out of the match for no reason. She was legitimately injured. She couldn't be in the match.
But through no fault of her own. There was no fault of her own, obviously. Yeah.
Jack punched her in the face. So,
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
Who knows? Mike, your thoughts?
Yeah.
I think it's all a work. I do think in real life she got way too sensitive about fans booing her. And part of it's, I think, because she got thrown right into the lion's den because she's a part-timer with a big name. And look, don't get me wrong, she fared well in the ring. She was able to adapt and learn and put on decent matches.
She worked more TV than, when she had that run. She was working consistent television, though, at least,
Right, her first run. But
yeah,
so some of the comments she makes, and again, I don't know if it's all part of the work, she's made it sound like she wouldn't come back to a regular time schedule. And I don't really care, to be honest. Like, I'm tired of part-timers.
Yeah.
Like between Goldberg and Brock, and if they're going to bring her in to do that version for the women, like, I honestly just want to move on. Like, you had a nice little run, but you left. You want to do a family? That's cool. I don't want her coming back every couple of years for a Rumble to WrestleMania run just to take a title and take a top slot. Like, I don't really want to see that.
Do you think this is planting seeds for a horsewoman versus horsewoman Survivor Series match that we've been talking about for a while?
I think we just need to stop asking about that.
I know,
I don't think they're ever going to get around to that. We've been saying that for years, and like they never. I mean, it could be, but they never seem to put it in place.
Yeah. There's planting seeds for something, obviously. I don't know if it'll be for SummerSlam or Survivor Series, but something in the works, Well,
they probably don't know until they know when they can come back on a regular basis.
Right.
True.
Roman Reigns, I mentioned before, somebody close to him has basically let Meltzer know that Roman's going to be out for a few months. The last we had heard of Roman, obviously, he was booked to wrestle Goldberg at WrestleMania for the Universal title. That fell through, some related to Miz apparently being sick when they were getting ready to tape WrestleMania, who was in a match with the Usos, Roman's cousins, some Roman's family, and Roman left because of that. Obviously, medically, for medical reasons, it's very, very risky for Roman Reigns to even be outside. I can relate. With his, not that I have what he's dealing with, but he is a cancer survivor, 2-time cancer survivor, and he's got a weak immune system naturally. So something like this coming out is very, very dangerous for him. So I can understand him at least taking a few months out to make sure the world is safe. I think we can all agree with that, but how do you guys think this would affect a Roman's build up or, career at this point? Like, how does this affect Strowman, who looks like he's going to be set to face The Fiend next?
How will it affect Roman? Not a freaking at all.
Yeah.
I'm not a tenth of concerned about Roman's spot. Like, he's going to miss 2 months or so. Good for him. He needs to rest up and be healthy. I'm not worried about that. Is Roman going to lose his spot? Are you friggin' kidding me? Hell no. Vince would give him his own lungs if he thought it would help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think you
Gotta
guys?
make Roman look strong.
Yeah.
Take my lungs, Roman. You gotta look strong.
Mike, do you think they should just save him for when they can return full time to fans in the arena shows? Is that the best time to bring Roman back?
I mean, yeah, like I keep him out until the world's a little more kind of, on top of the virus thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, honestly, what I kind of figured they'll do is they'll bring him back and then they'll just kind of look at the schedule and be like, okay, what's the next big 4 pay-per-view?
Whenever we're allowed, yeah.
Depending on how soon it is, they'll kind of give him another. I have a feeling if he comes back, they'll put him in another like upper mid card. Hopefully not Corbin, but someone just to kind of beat a few times, and then if Rumble's next, or if it plays out well and he can start the road to WrestleMania, they'll do that. Like, I mean, Tommy's right in the sense, like they're not going to be like, oh, okay, well, you're going to be curtain jerking now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think they'll throw him immediately first match. I would hope not, but into the title. But
that was my next question. Do you think it would be fair for him if he comes back just straight in the Universal title picture, since he never got to challenge?
No, that's what I was saying. Like, I think they'll give him a month or so with another feud to rev him up, and then they will. Like, not immediately, but pretty soon after.
Yeah, I think if they immediately jumped him in, then it's going to be the fans shitting all over it. Like, you got to book him smart coming back,
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
Book him smart.
Well, in a way, they did it this whole time when he first came back. Like, they had the slow burn getting him to a title shot. So,
And then he got stuck with Corbin for like 6 months.
Yeah.
That's the slowest, most difficult, most torturous burn.
I know it's still burning, right? All right.
Yes.
Now you mentioned how it's a big 4. Some would argue, and I'll be on that argument, that it's now a big 5 with Money in the Bank being the 5th.
Yeah, you know what I meant.
Yeah, I know. But with
I'll give you that.
It's a good segue into what we're talking next. Money in the Bank. At WrestleMania, they announced it was going to happen May 10th. It's slated to take place at the Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. But within the last week, that arena has come out and canceled all events for the foreseeable future due to the shit going on out there, as we like to say in Texas. So that being said, WWE has still kept on like Money in the Bank is going to happen. We can only assume it's going to happen at the Performance Center or somewhere in Florida, especially now that they've been deemed a essential business. And they've gone so far as to already have qualifying matches for the women's Money in the Bank match, and they've already scheduled some for the men as well. With how they handled WrestleMania, how do you feel about Money in the Bank still happening?
Well, I mean, they're doing qualifying for it, so
Yeah. Do you think it's? I mean, you were still kind of iffy when with WrestleMania. Should it still happen? Should it not still happen? Should Money in the Bank still happen?
They seem like they're going forward, so
Yeah.
I mean, whether it should or will, I think it will. I think they'll just keep doing it in the Performance Center, because they seem like they're set on going forward with it. So
I almost want them to see if they can get access to Full Sail and do it there. Granted, there won't be any fans either way, but I don't know that maybe it's. I mean, they'll find a way to rig a briefcase up there and anything. So, but
they had it. They had it hanging Monday for.
Oh, did they really? Okay, I missed it. I just knew the qualifying matches, but I was back and forth between cooking dinner and everything, so I kind of missed here and there.
Oh,
so.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I mean, they had it hanging like they always do when they start the road to Money in the Bank. So yeah, it was there.
Okay. Yeah, so far we know.
What a match for the tag titles at WrestleMania. So
yeah,
that's true. Yeah. So, I mean, I love it. I'm interested in it. I still feel like Money in the Bank is kind of early. This is the second year in a row they're doing it. Basically, the first pay-per-view right after WrestleMania.
Yeah, it feels early regardless of what's going on now. It's like really just right now. There's not even okay.
Yeah, I liked it better when it was in June. It was like the first big pay-per-view of the summer.
Of course, this is me who was a huge fan of Backlash, and the fact that we don't get Backlash anymore just hurts me.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I mean,
I miss Backlash, man. It was a fun pay-per-view.
It always was, wasn't it? Yeah. I always felt like it should have been Backlash, and then you get to Money in the Bank. Keep it like in the summer. That would have been really good.
And then Revenge of the Sith. Oh no, that's
Revenge of the Great American Bash.
No, it's WrestleMania, Backlash, Money in the Bank, then the Phantom Menace,
The Great American
It
Bash.
was me, Austin. It was me all
reason.
along. Vince was the Phantom Menace.
Any early predictions on who's going to win the men's and women's Money in the Bank matches?
Cesaro.
You know, considering we talked about him already, and
Why not?
I mean, if he beats Daniel Bryan to qualify, why the hell not? It's a great spot for him to do it. Yeah. So,
I mean, in all seriousness, at least put him in the match, like we said earlier.
let him show what he can do.
Well, it's like everyone in the company vouches for him except Vince. It's like Vince is the only guy who doesn't think he should be champion. It's like, dude, like even all of your talent are like saying, you know, can Cesaro win?
Do you think that? Do you think that obviously?
Even like John Cena's like, hey, that Cesaro guy's good.
Right.
Cricket.
with this taking place with no fans, obviously there's not a really good chance Vince is going to make any sort of audible calls on the fly as far as who wins that night, unless he's like heavy into social media. Because we know if Cesaro's in the match at Money in the Bank and there were fans in attendance, fans are going to be cheering like for hell, chilling the hell out of him, wanting him to win. And if anybody else wins, they're going to boo the crap out of him. So, you know, that makes me wonder. It's going to be interesting to see how they do this because with no fans in attendance, they pretty much can control how this show goes on, how it's reacting. You know, they don't have fans drowning out or boos, or they can get promos across the way they want them across.
Okay, see, here's my only issue with everything going on right now with WWE, and this is my biggest thing. When TNA lost their contract, I think with Fox Sports 1, and they couldn't find another network for a while.
Yeah.
One thing they did was they took advantage of Raven's popularity as an internet darling, pretty much, and that's why they put the world title on him. Mm-hmm. Because with Raven as world champion, people would keep watching, or they'd find some way to watch it, like they would keep up online or buy DVDs or whatever. But it's like, I mean, okay, I will admit Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre are the guys to have the belt on right now. That makes a lot of sense, yes. But my also thing is like you have guys like Cesaro who are clearly internet darlings, but yet you won't give them more spotlight to where you can guarantee the internet marks, who right now are your best market, will keep watching. This is the one time in history where internet marks absolutely have all the power, and yes, you would absolutely want to cater to them right now. Yes, it's purely pandering, but pander that shit.
Because they're the ones that are going to blow up social media with stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, blow it. I mean, this is the time to do it. This is the time where like Vince is like, I don't want to push this guy because I don't know how the crowds will react. There's no crowd. Vince, there's literally no one here. It's you being 8 other guys in this meeting because everyone else is scared to come.
And the camera guy and that production guy. Yeah, you know.
Yeah.
Touche.
Triple H is talking to him. Like, I don't know how people will react to Cesaro. Vince, there's no people to react. There's 4 guys in this meeting. We have to pay 2 of them more to get here.
Well, we'll see how this pans out.
Here, Vince. She refused to come outside.
Oh, don't give me that hope. I'm sorry.
We'll see how this pans out, but for me personally, I am pretty excited that it's going to happen. Man, the Money in the Bank, at least it looks that way. And I am hopeful that we ourselves can get on some sort of group message, video message, and I'll try and stream a live reaction on YouTube since we all can't be together unless things change a bit. But either way, for the Money in the Bank matches, much like the Royal Rumble, you never know what's going to happen, and it's always fun to stream a live reaction to that. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so we'll work something out.
The one thing I do hope that happens is I didn't watch Raw because I can't right now, but I did see the clip on YouTube where Mysterio talks about how he didn't really get another full-on world title run. And everyone knows the story there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for no reason. Anyway, so he was talking about like getting another chance at becoming champion again, and like I know he's retiring soon. I'm like, please, just give the guy one more, just one more, just come on, make it against Cesaro. I don't care, just give him one more.
Oh, that'd be a great one too.
We'll see how the qualifying matches lay out. So.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on into the AEW TNT Championship Tournament. Now, last week, of course, we all basically just gave who we thought was going to pick the entire. We picked who was going to win the entire thing, become the first TNT champion. As you recall, I picked Darby Allin, Tina picked Sammy Guevara, and Mike and Tommy both picked Lance Archer to win it all. Lance Archer looking solid in his squash matches. I mean, what more can you say, right? Doing live stuff. So it is pretty cool, though, to see him on TV, in American TV. Yeah. And, of course, they already had the first match. Cody beating Shawn Spears. Great match. I did think Shawn was going to win, but it was still a pretty well put together match. Mm-hmm. And I really did enjoy it. So I'm enjoying the fact that all these are basically going to be main eventing all of the AEW Dynamite shows in the coming weeks. They're doing one a night, it looks like. So...
Well, except this coming one isn't. This is when Moxley faces Jake Hager.
Oh, Jake Hager. Yeah, that's right. That's probably gonna be the main event. Yeah, Moxley and Hager. So, like I've said before, AEW is bringing it. Nothing to take away from NXT. They had some great matches as well this past Wednesday with Io Shirai winning a ladder match to become the number one contender to challenge for Charlotte's NXT Women's title. So that.
Finally, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my moment, like Mike, of don't give me hope, but I can't help it. I already have it. It's already there.
Hey, you never know, man.
I'm sure she'll be Charlotte. No problem.
Yeah.
Stop it.
All right. So what we're going to do now is Mike, Tommy, and I are going to be picking the rest of the brackets. Put some music here a little bit. We're going to kind of go through.
Awesome song.
Yeah, thank you. I don't even know what's playing right now. All right.
Exactly.
So we're gonna start with Tommy. We're gonna kind of go through the whole bracket here all together.
All right.
Sammy Guevara or Darby Allin?
Unfortunately, I'm gonna guess Sammy.
Okay.
No. I take it back. I'm serious. I'm going Darby Allin.
Okay.
Because of how something between the tag team match with him and Cody went the other day. So I'm guessing Darby Allin.
All right. On the other side of the bracket, Kip Sabian or Dustin Rhodes?
Dustin Rhodes.
Dustin.
And actually, I'm gonna explain that with my pick to win it, of course.
Well, obviously, so you said Lance Archer. You're sticking by that, I assume. Archer beating Colt Cabana.
Yeah. So, and that's why I say Dustin Rhodes, because I think Archer's going to kind of nearly kill him to get Cody's attention.
Yeah. So then you think Archer will be Dustin, obviously, and then are you still going with Cody over Darby for the next match?
Now that's where it gets interesting, because part of me thinks Darby will pull it out over Cody.
Okay.
And then, and of course, then Archer over Dustin, and then Archer will win it all. But I think part of the reason that'll happen is because either Jake and Archer will get inside Cody's head or something like that, or Darby might be a bit sneaky and win it that way. But that's where it gets interesting for me. But I think it's going to come down to Archer winning it, and then him and Cody fighting over that after that. So
you think Darby or Cody's going to win the final, or Darby or Cody's going to advance?
At the finals for the belt, I'm still saying Archer.
Still saying. Well, I know Archer, but who's going to be challenging him? Is it going to be Cody or Darby that advances? Because you're kind of going back and forth. So Darby, okay, yeah. And then Archer will still win. All right. Yep. Now, Mike, who do you got? Get Sammy or Darby Allin?
Yeah. So first of all, just so we're clear, because this is obviously not New Japan stuff. I'm pretty much on the same lines as Tommy, but not because I just, follow what Tommy said. I just had similar thoughts with the way things are going. In all seriousness, though, I mean, I kind of felt like the Archer Darby Allin match would suit both of them. Archer would be able to throw him around, look like a real monster. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but Darby plays the underdog so well. But the only other thing about the Darby-Sammy match is Darby beat Sammy at the last pay-per-view.
Okay, that's right.
I still think he's going to win, but I'd be interested to see if they put him over Sammy twice.
It'll be interesting to see how the Inner Circle gets involved with this one, too.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Chris Jericho doing commentary is fucking gold.
His commentary is actually pretty fantastic.
Yes. Him trying to throw in Jim Rossisms in there himself and everything is awesome. So, All right, so you got Darby being Sammy Guevara.
But I am going to pick Darby, yeah.
What about Kip Sabian or Dustin Rhodes?
I'm going to pick Dustin.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going to pick Dustin. And like I said, I picked Archer at the beginning, so I think, again, similar to what Tommy said, you're going to have Archer beating down Dustin. And also just for him, it's a good win to put under your belt.
Right.
To take down Cole Cabana, who was first, he's a pretty well-known internet indie sensation, and then taking out Dusty Rhodes, who's the veteran. And then again, kind of going back to Cody versus Darby, I don't think they're going to pull the trigger yet on the Cody Archer thing. I think they're going to build that story up. Mm-hmm. So I think Darby's going to pull out a win. Like you said, the Archer could get involved in that match to mess Cody up. And then I think in the finals, Archer's, Darby's going to put up his usual big fight and take a whole bunch of punishment and come back. But I think at the end, Archer's going to put him down and come out of this as a champion.
Okay. As for me, well, first of all, I'm looking forward. I really hope Darby wins. I'm sticking with that to beat Sammy Guevara because I really want to see a Cody versus Darby Allin rematch because their first one was a time limit draw that was just insane. That really put Darby on the map.
Yeah.
Lance Archer over Cole Cabana. I said it before. I almost feel like Archer has the easiest road to the final in his side of the bracket. It's nothing against the other talent, but the way they're building him up, it feels like compared to the names on the other side of the bracket, he's like the biggest one on this side, and I feel like he's got a clean shot. However, I do think Kip Sabian's going to beat Dustin Rhodes. Something about these mid-card titles, excuse me, are always about who's the hardest working guy backstage, right? Who's the hardest working guy there, not necessarily the one that's like in the top talent. And I think Kip fits that role. He's one of the harder working guys there. And if I'm not mistaken, Mike, I'm surprised you didn't pick him because he's the Mr. Harry Potter, names his moves after Harry Potter, if I'm not mistaken. So.
Oh, I know he is.
Yeah, okay.
It's Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah, I know. But I feel like it'd be great for Kip to get at least a big win over Dustin and put him in, a match and maybe give Lance kind of a run for his money. It can go one of two ways. He gives Lance a good match and Lance gets by to the championship, or Lance squashes him and he's just thinking, I'm going to win this no problem no matter what.
Yeah.
So I do have Archer in the championship, and then, as I've said before, I think Darby's going to go over Cody. And in a way, that kind of goes with what you guys were saying. They want to save Cody versus Archer for some major, big pay-per-view kind of storyline. Hopefully, if everything is clear to go and Double or Nothing still happens in Vegas, they can set it up for that. So,
yeah.
And as I've said before, it looks like Vegas is reopening in May, so we'll see. There's a shot. But I do have Darby Allin still being Lance Archer in the championship. I'm sticking by it. So we'll see how this all plays out.
Cool.
So I'm looking forward to it in the coming weeks. Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's a nice little tournament.
Clear my throat here. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we have these picks, and then I could also make cases for everything to go exactly the opposite. So
yeah, you never know what these.
I kind of like that tournament.
That's funny for all wrong. That'd be hilarious.
Dustin comes out with the title.
That would be interesting, right?
Weirder things have happened.
Yeah.
This entire year is proof of that.
Yeah,
seriously.
I'll say. All right, so next and final piece that we're going to be talking about this episode, the episode on Dark Side of the Ring, talking about Chris Benoit. So if you have not seen parts 1 and 2, this is your spoiler warning. If you don't know the story of Chris Benoit, obviously the discussion...
How do you not?
Either you're very young or you're just new to the wrestling business. But
well, I mean, in all fairness, if you're a recent WWE fan, they've given you no
reason to know.
To find out about it.
Exactly. So. Like you can't even search for his name on WWE Network.
Right.
And if you create a video game character in the WWE game, you're instantly banned off the servers.
Are you serious?
Yes. If you try and play online with
I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I never thought about that.
If you upload a character that's named Chris Benoit, looks like Chris Benoit, if you play an online match as Chris Benoit, they're very quick to shut you down and not allow you to play online anymore.
Wow.
So
Dang.
they don't want to lose their WWE license one way or another. So now, if you name him the Dynamite Kid with the mask on, well, there's ways around that. So
I mean, Pegasus Kid
or whatever it was, Pegasus Kid. Excuse me. Yeah. So whatever he went under mask. Yeah. Or Dynamite. Well, I say Dynamite Kid because he was influenced by Dynamite Kid, right? So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But talking about the mask as Japanese character.
Yeah. Anyway, spoiler alert. Again, if you haven't seen this yet, you can go watch it either on demand with Vice or on Vice's YouTube channel. They have parts 1 and 2 out there. And I will preface this by saying some of the details of this are a bit graphic. Parental discretion advised, because the way this story laid out, it is pretty devastating and some pretty violent details. So
yeah.
Now, at this point, I assume that if you're listening by now, you either don't mind the spoilers or you know the story, you've seen the episode, and we're going to talk about it here. Obviously, a little bit of backstory on Chris Benoit, legendary wrestler. That's the only 2 words I need to say about this guy. 22 world championships all across the world. Like, this was his life. Born in Canada, traveled the world, wrestled in Mexico, Japan, made it big in ECW, WCW, him and the matches he had against the Taskmaster almost every damn Monday. They were fighting through every arena in America, it felt like. And my dad and I enjoyed it because they just beat the crap out of each other. And then, of course, wasn't really put over because we know how WCW ran. If you weren't in the, for lack of a better term, inner circle with the guys, you weren't getting put up in the main event spot, you know? So he leaves for WWE, part of the Radicals, and their career there just skyrockets. All those guys, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, who came before that.
Not Saturn completely, because Jericho wasn't part of the Radicals.
He wasn't, but he was part. It was kind of that tight knit group where once they left WCW, they blossomed.
Friends with them.
Yeah, you know.
But and they kind of get to this in the story. It was really Benoit and Guerrero that skyrocketed. Malenko, his career in WWE also was so. He never quite got off the ground like those two, but
still, he became Malenko became a mentor for a lot of people, I think. And,
no doubt. I'm just saying, as a wrestler, his character never quite, never reached the levels, and I think it was a big focus of the story, him and Guerrero.
Yeah, that was a major thing. They talk a lot about Guerrero because those two were tied together.
Right.
We know, of course, how sad it was that November when Eddie passed away. It was devastating for a guy that had gone through drug addiction, fought back from it, worked his ass off, got clean, ran a light sheet and steel gimmick all the way to a WWE championship, beating Brock Lesnar 1 month before WrestleMania to do it, and then successfully defending against Kurt Angle when he snuck his boot off, which was still probably one of the greatest finishes of any match in WrestleMania history, I think. Yeah. And then celebrating later on when Benoit won the title, the two of them. That was just a powerful moment. And it just sucks that, we lost Eddie. So devastating. But I think Chris Jericho had talked about it before on one of his podcasts about how hard losing Eddie was. Yeah. But this episode really reinforced how much it impacted Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
They said it throughout the episode. Benoit wasn't very social. He was very kept reserved to himself unless he was around Eddie. Eddie was like his best friend. So,
right.
Is that something you guys were surprised by as much as I was? I mean, we all thought they were a group of friends, but to find out how close they were is pretty insane to me. So,
well, go ahead, Tommy.
I was going to say, not really to me, only because I remember reading Jericho's second book about his life, and he went in and he had exactly one chapter talking about Benoit, and he mentioned something like that about how Benoit called him some point after Eddie passed and was just almost was in tears. He was enraged. He was why did this happen to him and all this kind of stuff. So it didn't shock me that much because I was because I remember reading that part in the book saying, wow, he must have really Eddie must have meant a lot to him. So when they explained it further, it just clarified it for me. But no, it didn't really surprise me anymore now.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
And they showed some of this footage, and I'm sure you do too. I remember the Eddie Guerrero tribute show
Yes.
When they talked about it. And I remember Benoit's. They showed it on the doc. He's talking about him, and he was breaking down. So, I mean, obviously they kind of were able with interviews with other people to talk about the actual aspects of their friendship and the time they spent together and all this, and how their wives were close and all that. But you could just tell from that Eddie Guerrero tribute show, because I remember that. I remember Benoit breaking down.
Yeah, I remember that.
About
Which
it.
is
So
which is something you never see
you
from
knew
him.
they were.
Yeah.
I mean, you knew they were a tight knit group, and you could tell that it affected him so much.
Yeah. And Chris Jericho said, like, when if I wanted him to go on that show, he says, I can't do it. He couldn't be on that. So, of course, fast forward to that, life goes on. These guys try to work their careers, and Benoit in some way just is a different person after losing Eddie. And then, of course, that leads into June 2007. When they announced that he had passed away, all we knew is that they found him and his wife and his youngest son dead in their home. And WWE ran a tribute show on Raw that night from Corpus Christi. They canceled fans. They just did a tribute show. When that show was over, shortly after, all the details came out. We found out it was a double murder-suicide.
Yeah.
And then I remember this distinctly because that Monday I was working. I got a news alert. I found out what happened. I couldn't believe it. I was seeing the story on the internet. And I actually ordered a pizza for lunch from Paul Revere's Pizza. And the delivery driver for Paul Revere's was AECW referee Mike Knoxville. So,
wow.
I knew he was a delivery guy. So I'd already ordered the pizza when I found out, and he delivered it. I was like, hey, did you hear what happened about Benoit? He's like, no way. He couldn't believe it. So, obviously, came home from work, watched the episode, and then all the news was breaking out afterwards. I was like, unbelievable. And the next night they were filming, I think they were actually broadcasting SmackDown from the AT&T Center here in San Antonio. And Darren had asked myself and Gabe to go flyer up some cars there because ACW had a show that following weekend. And we did. And actually, while we were in the parking lot of the AT&T Center, when the show started, I can't remember if they were doing this live or if they were taping, but we could hear the Vince McMahon announcement where he was saying from the parking lot. We could hear that's how loud the volume was in that stuff. We heard the pyro. We heard the announcement about him saying, outside of these comments, we will never say Chris Benoit's name on WWE television again.
Yeah.
We heard that. We heard the opening pyro, and then we heard John Cena's music, and I got instantly pissed off that he was there. So but still, it was a bit 180. And I remember, he's basically erasing the WWE archives. And I remember all the criticism WWE got for airing a tribute show. But how can you get mad at them for that? They didn't know all the details.
Yeah.
They were still running a show. For all they knew, it was a tragic death. And nobody really wanted to work finding out hours before what had happened that they were found dead. So, we'll start with that because they even bring out some of that criticism in this episode. Are you guys in the agreement that, the criticism on WWE for running that type of show was unwarranted?
For what they knew at the time, no. I mean, they couldn't. You can't fault them for trying to do that because at the time we didn't know everything. I do remember what Jericho. I think it was Jericho said that William Regal lived in that area and he had heard some things, and that's why his comments were so reserved. Because he suspected there was more to it than what everyone else knew. But what William Regal might have known was just what might have been the case. And it turned out, unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. But no one really knew at the time. Everyone was still guessing.
Well, Regal?
But when you find out, then you have to do what you have to do. But at the time, what could they do? Just not do anything at all?
Yeah.
I mean, if we had found out that Eddie, when he passed away, was doing hardcore drugs, would that have changed the tribute to him or not? I mean,
I mean, what I kind of remember, and to go back a day too from that time, I remember there was a Sunday pay-per-view, and he was supposed to have a ECW Heavyweight Championship match.
Yes.
And he got replaced, I think, by Morrison.
Yeah, John Morrison.
Yeah,
I don't know if he was going by Morrison.
CM Punk, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember that going, oh, that sucks. I wonder what happened. And then
I remember. Yeah, I said the same thing. Yeah,
I think it was in
And
Houston.
then
That pay-per-view was in
happens,
Houston. Yeah. So.
And again, same thing. I personally, and I'm sure both of y'all were somewhat similar. Like I was a huge Benoit fan from his time in WCW.
Who wasn't, right?
His intensity, his style was great, and so you hear that and you're shocked. You're like, man, Eddie just went a little while ago, and now this. It's horrible. And what I kind of remember, because it was still the very, you remember, I don't know, there was like ACW message boards, like the internet was still not as big as it was because there was no Twitter. It was all literally online.
News groups, stuff. Things like that.
Yeah, news groups and stuff.
And everything.
Yeah.
So what I remember is in the middle of Raw, starting to look at things, and it's like, an hour in, they're like, I'm starting to hear reports that, this is not that he was involved in what eventually we found out. So again, so similar to what, Tommy said, let's say, it was a 3-hour Raw back then. Let's say at 8:30, this information started to come out, which you're in the middle of running the show. Are you going to just stop and come in off the commercial break and go, oh, well, we're hearing reports that this happened, so we're going to stop right now. And then Jim Ross said it in the documentary, and I believe him for what it's worth. We didn't know until it was too late, and so but people always jump on wrestling without knowing the whole story,
especially in that time too. Even though it was becoming more and more mainstream, the press seemed to always find a way to shit on wrestling one way or another, whether they had it out for Vince McMahon or what. It happened when Eddie passed. Eddie, of course, was. Everyone knew he had issues with drugs, and that might have attributed to his death because it was of a heart condition. That might have been attributed to, drug issues.
So a random side story, just because it reminded me of this. I will not listen to Colin Cowherd on ESPN Radio because after Eddie Guerrero passed, I saw a clip of him shit-talking wrestlers, talking negatively on them, that they're all just drug addicts, and basically bad-talking Guerrero, and I was like, whoa. So, like, to this day, if I hear him on the radio or see him on TV, like, I change the channel. Like, I got no time for you. Like, he had no knowledge. He just came with that typical
shock jock kind of thing. Yeah.
That, like, I'm an elitist. I know everything. These little lowly wrestlers. I was like, nah, I got no time for that. So,
yeah. I don't listen to him because he's annoying. I don't really know about that, but now I have more of a reason not to. So, based on that, like, what was it? Was there anything in this episode that you learned that you didn't know before from Dark Side of the Ring, from this documentary?
About the only thing I didn't realize was how heavily Kevin Sullivan booked that feud between him and Benoit, which led to Nancy and Chris getting married in the first place. That's the only thing I didn't know because I hadn't really looked into it that much. So that was the only thing I didn't know, that he was that heavily involved to the point where that's what happened, because that sucks.
I didn't know that either, but it's almost funny in a way how that happened.
The one thing I really didn't know, which I thought was really like BS, was like how much his son David got crapped on for it. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Are you kidding me?
Agreed.
Yeah.
I was like, after I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, who's targeting him? What for? What? His dad's dead. His brother is dead. His stepmom's dead. And everyone's saying like, what? It's his fault, or like, yeah, you're dead. Like, what the hell does that do?
Yeah, the closest family he had was gone.
It makes me hate people. That's all.
And he looks like him too. That's
crazy, right? That was
just
insane.
Like him.
He really
I couldn't believe it. I thought I was looking at a young Chris Benoit. It was insane.
Me too.
I for one didn't even know. I mean, we hadn't seen his son until this documentary. We had heard from Nancy's sister previously on. I think she was on Jericho's podcast when they were talking about it on the anniversary of this not too long ago. And I think that him doing that podcast interview kind of led into this episode of Dark Side of the Ring and the reunion of it, because what really stuck out to me that I didn't know and I was very shocked by and in a way kind of hurt by was that I forget, was it David Benoit, the son that they interviewed? David. Okay, yeah.
David, yeah.
Yeah. That they pretty much kept him away from Nancy's family. And he was so close to Nancy. And I was shocked by that. They basically told both sides neither one wants to speak to the other, you know, and it was like, that's pretty fucked up.
It is.
You know?
And, you know, I was thinking about that too while I was watching. I mean, I could almost, like the way they worded, I can almost understand from David's side, or from David, you know, feeling like, oh my God, they wouldn't want to talk to me. You know, my dad was the cause of them losing, you know, their sister and their you know, their family. But the way they made it sound like it was basically just said from both sides without actually coming from the people directly, you know, like someone told David that they don't want to see him. Someone told Nancy's family that David didn't want to see them. It never seemed to come directly, you know, from each of them.
And it sucks that it took, of all things, it took Chris Jericho and a documentary to be filmed for these two families to finally reunite.
Yeah.
And bond over something.
Not just that, but like Chris Jericho did it, and like Chavo Guerrero is like this. I was like,
almost like the Godfather for
like the Guardian
David.
Angels of pro wrestling.
Yeah. Yes.
What is happening right now?
It's Chris Jericho, Chavo, and Diamond Dallas Page. Those are the Godfathers of wrestling. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I love Jericho and Chavo. Like seriously, I always feel like one of the only two people who see Chavo as like one of the most underrated guys ever. I just didn't know, like, when the chips were down and pro wrestling needed heroes to save everyone's minds. It's like, we have the triple threat. If you get Jericho, Chavo, and Diamond Dallas Page, whoever needs saving will be saved. I mean, Jacob Roberts is still alive because of Scott Hall.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, taking a step back.
Yeah.
No, just like Chavo, you brought him up, and I was like, that's actually one thing I learned how much he was still involved and connected with all of them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I ever really realized that.
When you think about it, Chavo lost his family, and he lost a really good friend too, and all that. So it sucks.
I think what was the most chilling part to me was the fact that he was getting the text messages from Benoit, like
while they were in Laredo at a house show. Yes, that was crazy.
And he like at the time he's just like, what the hell? What is all this? And then what did he have? I think he asked Scott Armstrong, hey, did you get a text from Chris last night? He's like, yeah, I did. It was really weird. And
they let Johnny Ace know. They called Georgia for a wellness check. You mentioned that Regal lived in that area, so I think Regal, when he made the announcement during the tribute show, it was kind of ominous when you look back on it, but he kind of had heard some rumblings about some of the fights that they had and the separations they had too, you know, living in that area. So, that was the biggest thing I learned too, is just how the families are kept apart, and seeing that reunion, seeing the two of them together, in the same room when how they did the interviews, when David broke down and they were there for each other, was amazing. That was really
cool. I was like, I actually said out loud, I was like, oh, she's there with him.
That was a hell of a payoff.
That making me so horrible.
That was a hell of a payoff, because throughout the whole episode, they looked like they were in different houses and different room setups, you know. So great payoff there. A little bit of wrestling work done. And for the two of them to attend a wrestling show, obviously looked like an AEW show together. Possibly might have been.
Oh my God, I was gonna bring that up. Wasn't that an AEW show? It had to have been.
It had to be with Jericho there. I assume it was Double or Nothing. We really don't know. It didn't look like an episode of Dynamite, but either way, to see them there at the show, enjoying themselves, Jericho to meet up with them afterward, loved it. And to be honest, if David wanted to get into wrestling, he could. He looks like he's in shape to do it, obviously, but the Benoit name might be a crutch.
Just in all seriousness, never use the diving headbutt, apparently.
No. At all. That was, obviously, that leads basically into the CT discussion. The diving headbutt was probably the biggest reason for Benoit contracting CT. He used it over and over and over again. Even the guy he took it from, the Dynamite Kid, who did it, was a legendary person that invented it, told him, I wish I'd never done it. because it messed with his
I
mind.
think it was it Harley Race who said he wished he'd never done it, and then my kid said not to do it.
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So.
Here's my thing. Unfortunately, I think when Benoit was wrestling, it came at a time when people didn't really care as much.
No.
And so he probably felt
definitely.
like he had to keep doing it. But I think now the fans are smart enough to be like, hey, dude, we'd like to see you wrestle again. So if you can't do that one move that injures you, you ain't got to do that move. It's all good.
Well, you say that, but not to get too off topic, but Daniel Bryan does it sometimes, and I'm like, dude, you of all people.
He protects himself more than I think Benoit did. You know,
I'm sure he does, but still, I just feel like
I do agree with that for sure, because like whenever he does do it, I get nervous. But I'm also with JC. I think he does protect himself more, and I also think he does it so infrequently that like the one or two times he does do it, it's borderline, but it's okay. But I think that's also why they have to check him every single show anyway. So
he hasn't done it since he came back from his own concussion issues.
Has he?
And not as much as I can recall.
I mean, but I feel like he's done it a couple times since he's been
back. I think I've seen him do it like once or twice since he's been back.
Yeah.
But
I think he tried it in the Lesnar match. Anyways, I just
and compared.
I agree that move. Yeah. If it causes that much trouble,
that's a big thing. I mean, when you compare the way Daniel Bryan does it to the way Chris did it, Chris does a full-on dive. Daniel more falls and protects himself too. So, but Benoit wrestled in an age where if you put your hand up to protect your head on a chair shot, you're a pussy, basically. Nowadays we see Sean Spears give Cody a chair shot on an AEW show, even though it was rigged. Even though it was rigged when the match was over, everybody cringes. Like Jim Ross is calling it out. We don't do that, There's a scary moment only because the chair happened to cut Cody. Thankfully, Cody was okay. It was a gimmick chair regardless, but still it's a scary sight. But this does lead into the big thing. When all this came out about what happened with Benoit, everybody assumed it was steroids. It was roid rage.
Yeah.
This, that, the whole HGH debate, this and that, all the toxicology. Oh, he took steroids. The wellness policy WP having it was a joke, which... WWE on their wellness policy are pretty strict. It's basically this simple. It's random testing. If you don't meet the procedure, you get suspended. If you test positive for something you do not have a prescription for, you get suspended.
Yeah, but it's because of this, they said.
Well, they kind of
Jericho said.
They started it after Eddie passed away, but they vamped it up more after the Benoit thing.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, that's what Jericho's talking about, right?
Yeah, so it kind of got started with Eddie. But there was always the loophole. If you had a prescription, you're good to go. If you had a prescription for steroids, you were okay.
Yeah.
That's really the long and short of it. So, but everyone assumed it was roid rage. His testosterone got crazy, so he killed his wife and son in a fit of rage and then hung himself. But that never, even back then, never made sense to me. It just didn't. And
it didn't make sense to me either, only because of how he did it.
Yes.
It's like it was way too methodical for a single episode of Roid Rage for that to take place.
Yeah, right. Here's where it gets graphic. He basically strangled his wife, suffocated his son. This was the day before on that weekend. It might have been Friday or Saturday. We don't really know. Left a Bible and a cross. They were very religious. Sent those text messages out after the bodies were dead. And for all we know, he very easily could have gone and wrestled that pay-per-view and gone on like nothing was going on. And then just took his own life by hanging himself in his weight room on that Sunday, I believe it was. So it's, that's not a roid rage thing. We didn't know what it was called at the time because concussions weren't a major thing back then, But years later, they examined his brain, and it's one of the worst cases of CTE that anyone's ever seen.
Yeah, I really like them bringing Nowinski on there.
How great was it to see him? Yeah,
he was such a big advocate for the concussions and stuff, and that, it was kind of nice to hear him talk about it as far as understanding and showing that like you said, it wasn't the roid rage, it was something else that a lot of wrestlers, I'm sure, actually probably have to a certain extent.
But to the extent,
from that time period.
Yeah, and he lived it. He had dealt with his own concussions.
Right.
What to hear that he had a conversation with Benoit about it. Benoit wanted to talk about it because Benoit knew something was wrong. And when Nowitzki called him to go out. It's like, now's not a good time. If they had that conversation back then, like if whatever Chris might have been, whatever reason of a fight or something, how different might things be if he had that full conversation with Nowitzki about what was going on? And that's just one of those things with fate,
Yeah.
But the pictures they showed of Benoit's brain, man, that's just scary. It's scary how damaged his brain was. And then you start to understand why it happened, It doesn't take anything away from what he did. It's still tragic. It's still violent. It's still a very good reason for him not to be mentioned on WWE TV anymore, and I don't fault them for that. So,
right.
It's to me, because I was going to bring that up. Because, to me, I hear a lot of people who argue on both sides about, Chris Benoit's place in wrestling history and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, here's always been my take on it. It's like, for one, because I tell people all the time, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. There was a time you couldn't find a bigger Chris Benoit fan than me. I'm sorry, you really couldn't. I would argue that for people. You really could not find a bigger one than me, especially with the circle I ran with. But then when all this came out, I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't support him. Back in the day at that time, to me, him and Eddie were like the 1 and 2 of best wrestlers. And of course, all this happened. Mm-hmm. And of course, and now he's not even in my conversation of who the best is anymore. And it's not because he wasn't a great wrestler, but because I can't condone everything else that happened with him. And when people say, well, he should still be, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, by individual fans who want to make that decision, that's up to them. I'll always appreciate the work ethic he put in. And that WrestleMania 20 moment was fantastic. Mm-hmm. But overall, no. I mean, I get why WWE doesn't acknowledge him anymore. I get why he's never going in the Hall of Fame. He should not. I'm sorry. As much as I love the guy, as much as I thought he was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, he should not be in the Hall of Fame. Now, what Chris Jericho said that Nancy should be in, absolutely.
Yeah, that was the next thing. I mean, Jericho has said many times that Chris Benoit would say he should not be in the Hall of Fame. He would say that himself because he would be much of a distraction.
Yeah.
But Nancy Benoit, aka Woman, for so many years, she should be. Was a great manager. Yeah. Was valuable at ringside, whoever she was managing. But it just sucks because of her last name and what she is going to be associated with, not because of anything she did in the ring, but because she's probably obviously the biggest victim, her and her son, in this whole thing, but because of who she's associated with. It's not likely in our lifetime that we could see her in the Hall of Fame, even if it was posthumously. And That's true. Sucks. But I feel like she deserves it, induct her as Woman, for crying out loud, You don't have to use
That's what I was going to get at. Because honestly, that's what she was known as for the longest part of her career. Mm-hmm. Probably the biggest part of her career in WCW was Woman. And I know this sounds odd, but honestly, with the no crowds right now, mm-hmm. this might have been the time to have some sort of ceremony where you just announce her as Woman. She's in the Hall of Fame. You don't have to worry about crowds taking over, chanting.
No full induction ceremony, like Yeah.
And maybe that's something they look forward, even when they get back to regular, is not doing it in front of the crowd on the regular Hall of Fame, but maybe having a pre-taped thing, at some point where it's just like we recognize her as part of the, WWE Hall of Fame as Woman, and not allow fans or outside things to, kind of derail a segment or something like that.
You really don't have to make a mention of how she died or who her husband was. It can be just about her career in the ring.
Right.
Yeah.
So, mm-hmm.
I think one thing though, also, if they did put her in our lifetime, I think a majority of fans now are more respectful than people think. Now, mm-hmm. on the internet, sure, of course not. But I feel in the arena when they do it, if they say before, don't say this, don't say that, a majority of fans would agree to that. There, of course, will be some jackass who would try.
Want to try to tackle Bret Hart?
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, that same dude caught hands from Dash Wilder. Like that.
Yeah.
He got his face caved in, as he should have. So it's like, for the most part, the fans will be like, yeah, we're not going to bring this up. Of course, there'll be one jackass just ban him for life from all WWE events.
Mm-hmm.
You thought that was real funny, huh, jackass? Well, guess what? You're never coming back to an event.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
She joins that list of names. Probably the two biggest names that right now I can think that aren't in the Hall of Fame that should be are Woman and Owen Hart.
Yeah,
and
because to me, Woman was like to me, she was like Sensational Cherry, like Miss Elizabeth, just one of those great valets and managers who she wasn't just standing there doing nothing. She just constantly added more to the story. She was a great wrestling.
She got involved and she didn't mind. I mean, she was always hitting the wrestlers.
Took bumps of her own.
Getting physically involved.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a little bit. I watched a little bit of the After the Dark thing that they put up where the guy was talking to Chavo and Tommy Dreamer over Skype or Zoom or whatever it was, and he was saying how much Nancy got him over during his feud with the Sandman with the whole caning thing, because he had to either was it kiss her feet or something like that,
that's right.
Or Sandman would keep caning him, something like that, and that helped him get over. And see, that's where I mainly remember her from too. Is like from ECW. She was because I remember when I would watch old ECW DVDs, like, what's this chick with the lighter and the Singapore cane? What's up with that? So I was like, okay, this is the side of wrestling I wasn't aware of. What's going on here?
Yeah. And see, I remember her from her main WCW run.
Yeah, part of the whole
from like
Taskmaster Benoit thing, and so she was a part of that. So, well, that was really our discussion on it. I mean, this series is a great series, and they went to is a 2-part episode, 2 full hours, going very in depth on this tragedy and this whole story. That it's hard to believe was 13 years ago now. It's insane how time flies.
I do feel bad for Jim Ross probably catching the worst of that heat from the WWF side when they made him go to
the whole story of sending him to the
funeral and
that was.
But
I feel bad for him.
I think he legit cared.
I'm not saying the family shouldn't be mad. I completely get why they are. But I just feel bad for him. I feel like he just caught the wrong side of that,
Yeah.
Totally agree with you guys on everything y'all were saying about him not being included in, them not mentioning his name, not being Hall of Fame worthy, or not being put in the Hall of Fame. I agree with y'all on all those things about why they don't mention him. It a little bit of the fan of me think, kind of sucks the way it happened, but clearly with what he did, there's no way. Like, WWE gets nothing out of going, well, I mean, he was a great wrestler, even though, there's no reason to do it. There's no reason to bring more attention to his name concerning what he did. So I'll mention that earlier, and I didn't really get to jump in there, but agree with you, have no problem with it. It's unfortunate, but there's no excuse for what he did, and no reason to bring it back up like that. So.
No, not at all.
Or glorify it in any way.
Yeah,
I agree with that. We were talking about how Jim Ross was basically the separate, and I felt bad for him because I think Jim genuinely did care about the talent that he was head of talent relations, and it just sucked that he got the shit into the stick showing up for that.
Sure,
funeral. Because he knew Nancy, he knew the family, he was very close. Nancy and her son were cremated. Benoit, to our knowledge, was also cremated, but it's never been known where those ashes are, where they were spread, anything like that, and for good reason. So that's really our discussion about Dark Side of the Ring on Chris Benoit. If you haven't seen it, definitely go watch it. And if you haven't seen any of these episodes, Dark Side of the Ring is a really, really good series. Gets into some of the darker parts of wrestling. First season, of course, started off talking about Randy stabbing Miss Elizabeth. They go a little more in depth onto the Montreal Screwjob. Some of the episodes they have coming up, they recently did one on New Jack. They did one talking about WWE's Brawl for All, the infamous Brawl for All. We talk about, And the one that I'm most looking forward to that they're going to be talking about later this year, the finale of this season, is about Owen Hart. I'm very interested to see how that's going to pan out, what they're going to discuss, and if the Hall of Fame debate, which definitely will come into question. I'm more interested to see if Owen's widow is involved in the interviews for this.
Yeah, that was my question. I was like, was she even have anything to do with that? Because she's
having not been directly or not being directly WWE related, there's a possibility.
And I hope it's fine. I get it. I hope she doesn't take the opportunity to just run a smear campaign on WWE for all of this. My hope is obviously it's going to be great for her to at least talk about it in some form, and maybe this will be some sort of therapy for her to allow her to get this off her belt. My hope is that maybe will allow her to finally say, okay, my husband deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And maybe this will close the door on that. So I'm looking forward to that. These episodes are running through mid-May. Chris Jericho is narrating all of this season's episodes. Dutch Mantel actually narrated the ones from season 1. So check him out on Vice. You can also, if you don't have Vice on your TV provider, you can check it on YouTube, or you can rent the episodes. Although the Benoit ones, like I said, are for free. So definitely check it out. Dark Side of the Ring, really, really good series.
Yeah.
From that, we're going to move into our 1 minute warning. And we're going to start with Mike. For obvious reasons, he's mentioned it already. He's going to be definitely talking about Cesaro.
It's what they should have done with Cesaro this week.
With Mike.
Okay.
Well, I mean, he was on a podcast. He's featured, and let's see how well they handled the wrestling part of it. So, Mike, whenever you're ready, take it away.
All right. So, I mean, I've said a lot about what I won with Cesaro. I've kind of coming to a point too, in all seriousness. If they're not going to give him a WrestleMania moment, which obviously is already a big long shot, or at least a Kofi-like WrestleMania moment, at least let him have moments. I've said this before on the podcast too. Put him in matches with Brock, with Braun, with your big guys, even with Roman, which he's wrestled before, and let him have good matches. Then let him put those guys over and look like $1 million because he does it so well. While he's kind of fun in his tag teams and with Sammy and Shinsuke right now, I think he could be doing so much more for them. I would love for him to have one of those runs, but if they're not going to be realistic about that, at least give him a chance to do what he does best. I bought the Wrestling Purist shirt that he wears now. Not even going to lie, I was hoping to wear it on a podcast at some point.
When we get back together, we will. Don't worry. So
yeah. But just let him do what he does. He's great at it. Give him a chance to at least shine more often than he does right now. So,
all right, Tommy.
I think my thing with that is that before I go, my thing with that is my only problem, like I said earlier, is I don't know how many can vouch for this guy before Vince is like, okay, yeah, let him do it. Because, I mean, I'm sorry, when you have guys like even Cena saying, hey, he's good, it's now it's just your own arrogance of thinking that you know everything that won't let you push this guy.
Oh, I agree with you 100%, but
yeah,
it's still it is what it is.
And also my thinking is if Triple H had more say in what happens to the main roster, I think you'd have at least a much more ghost of a chance of winning a world championship, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
All right. Tommy?
My connection's cutting in and out again.
You serious?
Uh-oh.
Hello?
Mike?
Can you hear?
Ah, crap.
All right, who's got the next 1 minute warning?
Tommy does.
I do.
Yeah.
I got it.
How about y'all just go on with the show and I'll pretend like I totally can hear everything.
Well, hopefully you can hear us when we get to the closing. So,
yeah. I have no idea what y'all said, but yes.
Okay.
Oh, God.
We'll get to the 1 minute warning and then we'll get back with you, Mike. So, Tommy, whenever you're ready.
All right, I'll go. Yeah, I'm ready.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, my 1 minute warning is that Kairi Sane. Apparently, there's a rumor that she's unhappy, she's frustrated, that there's a rumor that she may not resign and that Stardom is already offering something. And all I can say is, thank God. Okay? If she leaves, praise the Lord. Let her go right on back to Stardom. They're doing great things, and she can join right back to with Iwatani and just go for it. I'm good. Let that happen. I would be so thrilled. Because WWE ain't using her. So, fine. Go for it. I'm good.
All right.
Whoa.
Mike, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, I actually heard that one. I tried to change the settings so that it connected better through the Wi-Fi. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right.
But yeah, no, I like what Tommy said because we know how much WWE has made it look like they were going to use some of their Japanese stars, and then nope.
No, we just decided not to because we don't know how to book Asians, basically.
Well, I mean, they give them pretty good setups just so they can be taken out by, other stars in moments they should have had. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that losing to AJ Styles is a bad thing for Shinsuke. It's not. And I'm not saying that Asuka losing to Charlotte is a bad thing entirely. I mean, like I said, it's not entirely a bad thing. But, come on, man.
But what happened afterwards, too?
Yeah, I mean, they won the Royal Rumble and then like nothing. You had
they got built up. Yeah.
Yeah, you had the biggest draw in New Japan for a while, and one of the biggest Joshi names, and you did nothing with them. And if you did, I think there's the obvious connection, but jeez, Vince.
All right. Well, I'm going to try and bring this back a little bit more lighthearted here. So.
Okay.
I've been meaning to talk about this for a while now, but things either keep coming up with a moment and warning. But I'm glad no one's mentioned this. I'm glad I can at least mention it because it does kind of relate to what everyone's going through, and the whole thing is social distancing. I invite everybody to search on YouTube or Google for GCW's social distancing match, a match between Joey Janela and Jimmy Lloyd. It is an 8-minute match of greatness of these two social distancing rules. And basically, in essence, they made sure to keep a distance of 6 feet, yet still happen to do arm drags, sunset flips, Irish whips off the rope. It's got to be seen to be believed, but it was so entertaining.
I gotta look that up.
So it's so entertaining. Go check it out. It's really hilarious. And with everything else going on, I'm glad we're still getting wrestling in some form or fashion. It's some great distraction, great entertainment. But definitely go check out the social distancing rules. I believe this was filmed before everything went on lockdown, but they put together something amazing. It's got to be seen to be believed. Go check it out.
Okay, because you blew it right. I was like, I have never heard of that.
Yes, go check it out. It came across my Facebook or Twitter feed weeks ago, and I was like, oh my God, I mentioned this, and I kept forgetting, and I finally remembered. Yeah.
I heard something about it, but I haven't seen it, so yeah, I'll definitely have to go watch it.
Yeah, go do a quick search. It's so hilarious. It's so good. Our Twitter account at @CCG_WrestleCast, and you can subscribe to the Countdown City Geeks YouTube channel. I'll have a link below again for Tommy's YouTube channel. He has his WrestleMania reactions, and we, of course, will be working on trying to set up our Money in the Bank reactions as well. I do have a few friends that are also going to try and set up some sort of stream where we can react to the first round of the NFL draft because we're all fans of different teams and we like to just shit on each other's team in the first round. But we can all agree the Cleveland Browns can't make picks for shit. So we're all going to enjoy seeing that. So outside of that, also my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/KnuckleFan64. I'm a Twitch affiliate. Come check me out, playing Samurai Showdown. And I actually got chosen for the closed beta for Guilty Gear Strive. Going to be streaming.
Oh, you lucky
bastard.
Yeah, no. I legitimately hate you right now.
Yeah, I wish we didn't have to be so far apart because I would invite so many friends over to come and play it and check it out because I'm gonna have the beta pretty much to the end of the weekend.
So what is this exactly?
So it's another type of fighting game, Guilty Gear. I'll be honest with you, I haven't played it extensively since Guilty Gear X2. And
I think that's the last time I really played a lot of it too,
it's got an amazing cast of characters. It's animated so beautifully.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
Yeah, go check.
So Bad Guy is one of my favorite characters of anything ever. He's in my top 30 of favorite characters of all time.
Well, I'm happy that May's in the demo, so I get to play her because she's one of my mains. So I'm gonna get to check her out. Yeah. Nice. So,
is she by chance a female Asian woman?
She's a cute little pirate girl that carries this big ass anchor as she fights, and she.
So basically, to answer your question, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, long story short, it's a fun fighting game that has instant kills, and it's so much fun. And
nice.
I'm looking forward to this because they're basically rebooting the whole series, and I'm thankful I got on the beta, so I want to check it out, see how it plays. They're testing out netcode, testing out gameplay, see what everyone thinks. I'll probably be streaming it along with Samurai Showdown. Go Roll Mark of the Wolves, and if I get a capture card, Animal Crossing New Horizons. So Come check me out there. Next week, I'm not really sure what we're going to talk about. We'll see what other news happens. What other items we can discuss. Or we're just going to shoot the shit for maybe about an hour. Who knows? We'll figure it out.
We have Cesaro Appreciation Day.
Or we have Cesaro Appreciation Day. Or maybe another Dark Side of the Ring episode we can talk about. Either New Jack or Brawl for All. Who knows?
Brawl for All.
Brawl for All would be...
Either of them, but yeah.
Brawl for All would be fun to watch, actually. Because I remember when it happened. It was...
Yeah, same here.
And then Butterbean beat the shit out of
I've heard so much about Brawl for All. I'm wondering if this documentary will tell me anything I don't already know. It probably will.
Yeah.
I've heard so many people talk about what a bad idea this was.
I just want to see Butterbean on the interview too. I would love to hear what he said.
The Raw episodes that they had, it have to be on the network. So
oh yeah,
if you found the right ones, you could go through and watch the individual fights.
Yeah, do a search. It gets pretty intense.
Yeah.
So, but thank you everybody for watching and for subscribing. Let us know your thoughts below on the Dark Side of the Ring episode of Chris Benoit and of the whole tragedy in general. And the debate, should Nancy Benoit be in the Hall of Fame, or we'll say, should women be in the Hall of Fame? Because I think we all can agree she does deserve it. So let us know, tweet at us, and if we get some comments, we'll read them out here on our next week's episode. So thank you again for joining us. On the phone, we have Mike.
I'm Mike, and be good to each other in 2020.
And Tommy.
Yo, thanks, guys.
And I'm JC, and as always, heels and baby faces, remember, pro wrestling is real. People are fake.
We tried.
I try and delay it so I can get it with you guys.
So if you want to subscribe to the channel, click right here.
And if you want to watch more WrestleCast videos, I got 3 words for you. Click right here.